Hey guys, what's up? This is Freenights from Netherlands.com. In this video we're going to go over preflop phasing a 3-bet. And what we're going to be doing as per usual is we're going to go over some data. I'm going to tell you guys my secret exploits, and I'll tell you some common mistakes that I see players make. And it's like the common mistakes, those are very prevalent. This is something that I see all the time. So the data, pool under 3-bets from the big blinds. This is one of the most common mistakes, and we already discussed this briefly in the raise first in section. And it's just one of the most common notes. Yet, whenever someone faces a 3-bet, they still refer usually to GTO-esque defense ranges, which to me doesn't make any sense. You want to overfold a fair bit. Now you don't want to go too crazy and just start folding queens or whatever, but you definitely want to deviate a fair bit from optimal by just folding all in different hands at the very least, or maybe even some pure in different hands. So that's one, and then another one is pool under 5-bets, and that's more of a niche one. There are some specific formations where the pool is significantly under 5-bets, and in those formations where there's like a lot of unnatural 5-bet all-ins. Like for instance, in this one, you can see ace-10 suited is going to be in there pure, ace-queen offsuit is going to be in there, ace-queen suited, ace-5 suited people will find occasionally, but not always, and there's a sliver of king-10. And it's very, very easy to just miss all the ace-10 suited and just call that ace-jack suited and call that. And this is a called 4-betting one, by the way, where button opens 3-bets by small blinds and big blinds, called 4-bets, and then this is what the small blind should do for facing that called 4-bet. And this is a spot where I actually am pretty aggressive from the big blind, simply because people are not finding the ace-10 suited, ace-jack suited, ace-queen offsuit, ace-queen suited jams, and that will lead them to being, basically it will lead to them under-realizing and me over-realizing. And there's going to be some indifferent hands in my range as the called 4-better that want to maybe 4-bet, maybe call, probably call a little bit more than 4-bet. And the reason is like the times that they 4-bet, call fold, I should say fold. When we call cold 4-bets, we don't cold call 3-bets. So there's going to be some hands that want to fold and some hands that want to 3-bet. And then there are going to be some hands that might want to 4-bet, but only if they don't face a 5-bet as often. And the reason is simple. The times that they face a 5-bet win, they have to always fold, and then they give up the money that's invested, let's say 22 big blinds, which is a pretty big investment. So in other words, let's say you never face a 5-bet all in, then investing that 22 big blinds for the called 4-bet suddenly becomes a lot more viable for a lot more hands, because you don't have to pay the tax of getting 5-bet all in. All right, so exploits. The exploits are going to be pretty simple. Slightly overfold from 3-bets from the big blind, and 4-bet liberally in spots where the 5-bet jamming range seems unnaturally wide, aka in wide formations. And then the cool thing is that if you study what some of the exploitative bots that are now prevalent, for instance, Ignition High Stakes, are doing, it is exactly this. They overfold versus 3-bets from the big blinds, leveraging the fact that they know that the pool is under 3-betting, and then they call 4-bet very liberally, and then obviously overfold quite massively versus the 5-bet jam. But the 5-bet jam isn't happening as often as it should. So they are very much exploitable, but they are being exploited themselves. They're exploiting the pool themselves, which is always a kind of the balance, I guess. Like if someone starts seeing, hey, this player is overfolding versus 3-bets from the big blind, which is something I wouldn't worry about too much in most cases, then there might be something that people will try to exploit. So always take that into consideration when you are playing. Common mistakes. Calling too many mixes instead of 4-betting. This is a very, very common one. Happens in usually in out of position situations where you just need to 4-bet a bit more. And it's very easy to miss king jack suited, ace jack suited, ace 10 suited type hands. Let's say cutoff versus MP, where you're just opening MP, facing a 3-bet, and then calling those hands. And yeah, like that's just a costly business, especially if you face someone who's exploiting that. And that would be something that's, I would be someone that would be exploiting that, because the pool does that on average, and so I'm going to be 3-betting a bit more, because I don't pay the tax of getting 4-bet as often. So facing a 3-bet, you want to do a fair bit of 4-betting, and it does make sense to check how often you are 4-betting, specifically blind v blind. There's a very, very common league where you should be, let's say, 4-betting roughly 19, 20%, kind of depending on the model that you're looking at. And the average for let's say an average mid-stakes player is about 13, 14. So significantly under 4-bets. And then not adapting to versus tighter 3-betting ranges. And like this is mostly happening when the big blind 3-bets. But there are many players in, like, I imagine that this course will be watched by anyone that is a serious amateur at low stakes to some high stakes players. And there, in any pool, there will be some players that have a 3-bet of 7.8 or even a bit lower. And then like those guys are going to 3-bet, they're going to 3-bet aces still, but they're not going to 3-bet their 7-6 suited or like weaker hands that should be in there sometimes, but not always. And versus those guys, it does make sense to play significantly tighter versus the 3-bet. And then what you want to do is you want to play a tighter range in general. And usually what ends up happening is the calling range becomes a bit more narrow. So you want to still 4-bet a fair bit. You want to fold a fair bit, but the calling range becomes a bit more narrow versus tighter 3-betters. All right, so that's it for this video. If you guys have any questions, hit me up in the chat, and talk to you guys soon. Bye.